Great. Thank you for joining us today, Stephen. And we'd like to warmly welcome you to the Care Leadership Series. And thanks for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Janice. It's a real pleasure to be able to talk with you from down here in Perth, Western Australia.
Fantastic. Well, just as we start, can you share a bit more about your organization and what do you do?
Okay, well, to begin with, Apollo Care is a very young organisation. We've only been in existence since July 2020, and in Australia, the aged care system is very much regulated, so therefore everyone provides very good levels of quality of care, and that's probably due to our accreditation system that we have in place down here. But we go beyond providing quality care. Our aim is to preserve the DNA of aged care services at greatest risk of extinction, which is the smaller not-for-profit organisations and community-based nursing homes that are in regional Australia. It's really important that we do this because we need to ensure that older Australians that live out in the regional areas have access to quality aged care in their own hometowns, and that's something that's beginning to hemorrhage here in Australia. So we've had to try and work out a system and a model that allows these smaller organisations that are not viable to remain in existence. So, we're basically we're operating under some significant disruptive innovation right now, and we're doing a bunch of things that are different, and it's these things that we're doing different that allows us to be able to preserve those smaller nursing homes in regional Australia.
What's Apollo Care doing that is different?
Gee, what are we doing that's different? Well, probably to put that in context, you've got to look at firstly what is going on in Australia with aged care. The government's moving towards a deregulated model. Next year, aged care deregulates supply. So for the very first time, the government will not be issuing licenses to operate aged care beds, but will allow the market to be able to build aged care facilities wherever it wants. And also it's beginning to deregulate price, and we're allowing more of the market to set the price rather than government setting the price on everything. So government sets the price on care and it authorises our level for accommodation, etc. But things are beginning to change. As a result of this deliberate move to a deregulated aged care environment, it means that we have to be smarter with all of the change that's coming, and there is significant change coming. We had a Living Longer, Living Better report and a Productivity Commission report saying that aged care has to change. We also had a Royal Commission report come out a couple of years ago that basically said there are going to be 5 pillars of reform that need to take place. So because we've got system reforms happening, we're beginning to adjust the model that allows us to remain viable. Now, many organisations are not able to do this. They're stuck in the old ways, and as a result of being stuck in the old ways, it's causing a significant amount of stress, which is leading to workforce shortages across the board. So, we have issues with aged care in Australia where COVID was a factor for having workforce shortages. We've got a situation where the acute health in Australia is funded by state governments, which pay more than aged care, which is funded by the federal government. And all of this is leading now to profitability challenges as well. So with system reforms coming down the track, in July, all aged care providers need to provide 24/7 RNs. In October, we're legislated to provide 200 care minutes per resident per day. So with all the system reforms, the workforce shortages and profitability challenges, we need to look at things differently. So when we talk about care leadership and what it means to me, I think we've got to look at it from two levels. For me, there is that strategic level, and at that we've basically brought in a board that has dealt with strategic or sector reform. You know, we've got our chairman, who's, you know, one of Australia's leading deregulation experts. We've got another board member that has been on the Reserve Bank of Australia, so very, very competent around finance, audit and risk. We've got another board member who was from a clinical perspective, she was the CEO with the NHS in England. So we've got, you know, international level expertise in terms of, you know, clinical care and compliance. And, you know, at the executive level, we have a director that was the CEO of now one of Australia's largest private operators. My background was a CEO in the not-for-profit sector. So what we've tried to do is bring in leadership at the strategic level that is very cognizant of the demands placed on providers in structural reform. And there are many organisations in Australia that don't have that level of, or higher level of strategic leadership. And then, of course, at the operating level, we have leadership there. We're running a whole bunch of programs that are dealing with innovation at the operational leadership level. You know, we've got SaaS software there, for example, that is teaching online our leaders at site level to basically lead by or through wise leadership. So we're beginning to educate our leaders in making decisions that are in the best interest of the organisation as a whole and not one specific area. So we have dashboards that are being created that hone in on KPIs that are relevant to the four lenses that we look through the management of our organisation.
Fantastic. Well, can you share with us your own care philosophy when you are thinking about how to improve care for the people that you're looking after?
We have a progressive care philosophy, and we basically look at a resident from the four perspectives of clinical, psychological, emotional, and spiritual well-being. And we deal in all four quadrants. We have systems set up that allow us to monitor and progress, you know, the care of our residents through all of these different perspectives. And I think that's really important, and it is unusual. We put our residents first. It's one of our behaviours that we've adopted, that we expect all of our leaders and all of our staff to demonstrate. So we have systems and processes in place that give us online real-time information about how we're actually providing care against those four realms. And, you know, this then allows our residents to be able to have choice. It allows our residents to feel as though, you know, they are at home because we're cognizant of, you know, things that are important to them. Yes, it's a nursing home. So yes, there is the clinical and that nursing role, but it is their home. So, you know, in your own home, you know, you do have certain beliefs. You do feel certain ways, and we've got to be able to understand that. So we've put a lot of systems in place that give me the confidence that all of our staff are actually operating at all of those levels.
Yeah, fantastic. So you must have many stories of how a senior's life has improved, you know, being under your care and environment and your team. Can you share with us one story? Pick your favorite story of the life of a senior that has improved since undergoing your care.
Okay, look, this is terrific. Our latest acquisition was a little aged care facility in the town of Harden. Now, as I said before, we're finding a lot of organisations are struggling with this structural reform. In fact, last year there were 44 facilities that changed hands and 38 facilities that closed down. Now, this was one of the facilities that closed down with a previous organisation. And so the town lost its nursing home and all the residents had to move away. And that caused a great deal of grief for the town and community and, of course, the residents. Because we operate under a completely different model, where we're running a virtual organisation and don't have any head office, we were able to talk with the community and bring this nursing home that was closed down back to life. And, you know, so once the nursing home was handed over to us, we went through a significant refurbishment program. And I'll just read out the words from our clinical manager about what we did, because it gives an idea of what we did to this empty building. We basically introduced a classic residential-inspired interior design scheme using heritage colours, the addition of fireplaces in sitting rooms, VJ panelling, warm pendant lighting, and these were very deliberate design decisions that have transferred the original facility into a homely community that reflects the character of this particular historic town. Now, what happened once we opened it up, and we've only opened it up 2 months ago, so this is a current example of what has happened to the residents in this home that's opened up. And I will read this out. For Harden, the local resident Don Armitage, the opening for Harden has made the world of difference to him and his wife, Margaret. He's basically said, my darling wife is living with dementia. Before Harden Grange opened, she resided in the closest aged care facility that's over 60 kilometres away. Now, she's been able to return to the familiar surroundings of Harden, and that's really important with someone with dementia. She's back where she belongs, and that's what her husband Don has said. Since moving back to Harden Grange, Donna's noticed that Margaret seems to be more calm and content. He'd say, I often travelled 60 kilometres to the other aged care community, only to find her unsettled and unreceptive to my visit. This was very difficult and distressing to see. Now she is so much more at ease in this community. The vintage lounge room and the memory support until it is just lovely. It's a cozy place to sit. There's antique furniture, a fireplace, glass display cabinet, just like you found at home. Margaret finds this very calming. We also spend a lot of time in the outdoor spaces, tending to flowers and plants, or just sitting in the sun. I know she's very well cared for at Harden Grange, and this provides peace of mind, Donna said. So what's happened there is she was moved out of the nursing home when it shut down. And we've been able to bring the nursing home back to life. So she's been able to come back home, not only in what we've considered to be a state-of-the-art facility, but, you know, her husband, Don, is now not travelling 60 kilometres each way. 20 kilometres to see his wife every day. He can pop in, he can take her out, they can go and look at the shops and things, which of course is a trigger for her and her memory. She's a much happier and calmer person as a result of being brought back home. But we're doing this effectively hundreds of times. We're saving these smaller facilities, which means we're getting that sort of experience across multiple residents.
That's wonderful, and I think that's a perfect story to share with us about how a senior's life has really changed. You know, next we wanted to have a chat with you about the technologies that you've utilized to provide better care. What's been your experiences in implementing these technologies?
Yeah, okay. And this is something that I can also talk about from both an operational and a strategic level. Look, with what happened with COVID and the fact that we commenced operations in July 2020 and we couldn't travel around Australia, we basically had to have an entire corporate environment that was based on the most contemporary technology architecture and applications. And so what we've done is we've invested heavily in the IT space. So, you know, from an operating perspective, we have a cloud-based system, and obviously all of our applications, all of our software need to be in the cloud, and that includes even our QMS, our quality management system, and our compliance system is in the cloud. So we don't need human beings being able to go into every facility to make certain that we are in compliance from a quality perspective with what the accreditation in Australia is set up for. We basically run it all online, real time. We can update our systems, you know, every second of the day if we want. We've brought in the latest systems, be them finance or HR. But look, for example, our clinical system, we're running iCare and CareKeeper, which is basically handheld devices. All of our staff have, you know, either on their phones or, you know, iPads or whatever, where we basically can update our care plans for all of our residents in the room online real time. So we don't have our care workers then having to double back, do double entries, fill out paperwork, have long handovers, you know, at the end of shifts. Everything is online and it's very simple to use. So we have all of our staff there basically in their hand being able to tap on every resident and go through the process of what their needs are, what they're currently experiencing, and it updates all of our systems online. That makes our system fast. We're not doubling up on work, which means we're getting extremely good efficiencies. At the strategic level, it's really interesting. When we raise capital, when we're acquiring these smaller organisations that in their own right have no capacity to bring in online, real-time contemporary systems in the cloud that are expensive on a bed or per user rate, and when you've only got, you know, a small little nursing home, you cannot afford this stuff. Because we're all online and we don't have a head office as such, if we get the scale, we're able to pass or spread the costs of that IT across hundreds or thousands of beds, which obviously brings the price down. But what we're doing is we're using that capital money that is raised for three things. We're using it for buildings because everything we acquire needs, you know, touch-ups and renovations and a bit of love. We've obviously had to invest heavily in IT, and don't think IT is cheap. It's not cheap. Good IT in the cloud is expensive, but with scale, it does come down and becomes quite affordable. And we're also using, you know, the funds to cover the operating losses that these smaller organisations have until we turn them around. So we're using, you know, that money for trade up. So, you know, the fact that we've been able to build a modern architecture where we're using Microsoft, for example, Azure, means all our issues around cyber security are part of the package. So all we're doing is we're spending more once the architecture's in place on things like the system, the applications that are contemporary to bring the greatest efficiencies. Yes, it's working, but the secret is scale. You've got to get to scale for this to offset what the costs are for the IT versus having no head office. So There's a formula behind it, but
Yeah.
we're almost there now.
Okay. Are you using data analytics in any way to track quality of life and quality of care for
Oh
your
yes,
residents?
yes. Look, because we're building, we've built the architecture. We've got all the data sitting in obviously all of the different applications we're running. We do have that data there, and it's a matter of cutting that data up and then analysing that data. And we basically have all of our KPIs sitting under 4 behaviours. So, we're looking at from the perspective of the resident. We're looking at from the perspective of compliance. We're looking at from the perspective of financials, and we're looking at from the perspective of workforce. And it's really interesting. We're currently the pilot organisation for some work that's being done with Flinders University and Stuart Brown, which are the financial benchmark, on the relationship between culture, which is the behaviours of our staff, the spirituals, psychological and emotional well-being of residents, and the financials. And with the data that's there, we're able to now put the information together that's beginning to show what we believe are the direct correlations between, for example, culture, care, and financials. So the program's now underway. There'll be a pilot for 18 months, and that will validate that there is a direct relationship between, the investment in our staff, the investment in care, and the financials. So yeah, we're doing that right now. It's bleeding edge stuff. And that's why we're getting the universities and the ethics committees set up to validate the data.
Yeah, fantastic. Let's talk a bit about staffing for the sector. And this is also our last question to you. How do you motivate and develop talent for the sector? And that also relates to attracting staff for the sector.
Okay, let me first set the grim picture right now within aged care in Australia. Aged care is known to have thousands of staff short across the country, which is typical of a lot of countries around the world. We're seeing acute care shortages of nurses. We're seeing home care, community care, primary care and aged care, all short of talented staff. Aged care in Australia is probably suffering the most because aged care's wages are lower than, for example, the acute sector, because the acute's paid by state, whereas aged care is paid by the federal government. We're at a 25% wage difference for a start. Also, with the sector reforms that are currently going on, it's putting an inordinate amount of pressure on staff. So we're finding staff leaving aged care and going to acute for a number of reasons. So we're there, and of course with COVID, we've not been able to bring talent in from overseas. So with all of these things, that's why the workforce shortages in aged care in Australia are now probably, and I believe, to be the greatest issue facing our sector. So what are we doing? I think you've got to cut it up and look at it from the perspective of both attraction and retention. They are different things. We're doing a number of things in the attraction place right now. We're looking at some ways we can fast track nurses and care workers into our organisation from overseas, and we're getting assistance from the federal government through a number of different programs that are going to allow us, hopefully, to fast track bringing in talent from overseas. We're looking. We have a world-renowned quality program that actually measures the culture from a behaviours perspective. And, if you do get all the staff behaving in what we believe are the right ways, you end up with a terrific culture. Well, a terrific culture becomes an attractor in its own right, because we had our staff being able to go out to, other people in the community and say, hey, come and work for us. We're trialing bonus systems as well for staff. We're actually looking at if we can improve, and we are improving the productivity of these sites through, for example, the IT innovation, etc. And we're able to turn organisations around that basically then become surplus and get surpluses. Why can't the staff share in that reward? So we're actually looking at trialling that right now. We've got staff referral bonuses. We're doing a bunch of things that we hope will attract staff, and then it's that culture program that we've invested a lot of resources in, that we are seeing the results now, where we're then able to retain. So it's a multifaceted approach to both attraction and retention, and we have to do it. If we don't do it and we don't have staff, we won't be able to operate the facilities at all.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what you pointed out. It's really about positioning the roles for the sector, making it more attractive across multi levels, and I think you've really captured the essence of it. Well, thank you very much, Stephen, for joining us today at today's webinar.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. I've enjoyed chatting with you and talking about some of the things that we're doing down under.
Great. Thank you very much, and have a good day.
Thank you.
CarePage Business is the only feedback platform designed for the health and aging sectors. With CarePage Business, you can uncover powerful customer experience insights, monitor resident or client feedback and complaints in a single, easy-to-use platform, and get the insights you need to drive continuous improvement in services and facilities.